Okay, so to continue on, let's get it together. To continue on with our presentation about fitness and dieting and how the differences between men and women can be kind of drastic, let's look at some of the physical differences. So we know that women are half as strong in upper body areas. Not all women, yes, we have the super buff women who can do more push-ups than any guy that you know, but in general, women tend to be half as strong in upper body areas and 2/3 as strong in lower bodies and legs. This is not because we're inferior. It's also because women carry less testosterone. Our bodies are just smaller, and because of that, then our strength levels are also equivalent to the size of our bodies compared with that of a man. Our muscle fibers are smaller, but individual muscle fibers are the same strength. Okay, so we have smaller muscle fiber areas. So legs are not as big, but individual fibers are the same strength. And then we have a higher percentage of body fat, and it's just our essential body fat that we have for reproduction purposes. Even if you don't plan on reproducing any kids, still get it. So women have about 12 to 15% body fat, essential body fat, whereas men can have anywhere from 2 to 5. Not the fairest, but hey, that's what we got. So we just roll what we have. And then we also have lower blood volume, smaller hearts, and less lung capacity. So this is one of the reasons why drinking 2 or 3 drinks for a guy will not produce the same effects that it will for a woman, because our blood volume, and then our hearts are also not as large. We can't do as much damage to our hearts. There's a reason why there's a men's and a women's separation when it comes to athletics, because larger hearts, larger lungs, they can withstand more, and therefore be an unfair advantage. So these are just some of the physical characteristic differences that make exercising sometimes harder for women to do the exact same thing. If you were ever in high school and had to do the physical fitness test, you might have noticed that the women's push-up test was set at 15 or 20, whereas the men had to do, 25 to 30. These are the reasons why. So when we talk about equality and equity, it's also equitable based on what our bodies are capable of doing. So pound for pound, women's bodies are simply not as muscular and large as men, so we cannot do as much. It doesn't mean we cannot train. It just means that if there's a man who is given the exact same protocol and a woman who's given something that's the same, then just based on the way they were naturally built, the man is going to be able to either do more or do it better. Doesn't mean they're better. It just means that they got more muscles. We got them beat on the flexibility and the balance and sometimes the empathy and things of that nature. So it's a balancing effect. And then we have some gender gaps as well. There are multiple cultural differences in athleticism and exercise habits. I know that when I come into my classrooms on Thursday, I ask my students, hey, what sport do you think I went to college on a scholarship for? And the one that I got the most was basketball, track, things of that nature. And coincidentally, I did do those sports, but the actual sport that I went to college on a scholarship was for gymnastics, something that is not culturally known to the Black community. And so we have some of the cultural differences that also intertwine with gender. We have women are not traditionally encouraged to exercise as much as men are. We don't view the same amount of muscle on a woman as attractive as we do on a guy. So many people come into the weight room and let me know, hey, Dr. Pereira, I don't want to get buff. I just want to stay lean. So women are not really wanting to put on muscle, and we do need to put on muscle. We do need to strengthen our bones, because as we get older, osteoporosis is more prone for us, and these are the types of strengthening exercises that will actually help to decrease those rates. So there are cultural differences. There are a lot of other ethnicities and certain even Orthodox types of religions where they don't encourage their women to participate in certain sports. Or in certain cultures, if you are not of this ethnicity, you're not encouraged to participate in a lot of the sports that are more high energy. And so these are things that filter into the way that women participate and coincidentally their health later on in life. And then we had something that has since been heavily implemented into the academic and the athletic realm, and that was Title IX. So Title IX, you might have heard about this, and you may have also heard of a lot of male uproar over Title IX. Title IX is not sports specific. Title IX is a piece of legislation that says any entity, any organization that is receiving federal funding cannot discriminate on the basis of sex. And this was happening with women's athletics because they weren't funding women's athletics and as well as the men's athletics in schools. And this was impacting women's participation. And so now that has been changed. Equal funding must be allotted. And we might have heard that men said, oh, well, Title IX ruined sports for men because it forces to give money to women's sports. And that's just simply not true. Almost every single sport in the United States, when it comes to collegiate sports, loses money. There's only a few the big schools, Michigan, Oregon, LSU, Alabama, a very few percentage of schools who actually turn a profit from their athletic departments. And of all of those schools, there are only 2 revenue generating sports: football, men's football, and basketball, and men's basketball. Those 2 sports, in the rare occasion that they actually make money, which is not very often, those 2 sports actually fund all of the rest of the men's sports and all of the women's sports. And most of the time, the athletic departments run at a deficit. So this is not something that impacted men's sports in a negative manner. You may have heard that, but I want to be the first to dispel that outright lie because I was a senior woman administrator for an NCAA school, and that's just not the case. And then we also have going on to the last bullet, boys are encouraged to excel and girls are taught to fit in. That is very true. Women are often not encouraged to participate in high-impact sports. It's not viewed as ladylike, it's not viewed as girly, so they may become a cheerleader instead. And there's nothing wrong with that. I also was a cheerleader, but I also wrestled and ran track and played basketball and did gymnastics. So there are things that women can do that sometimes we are just not encouraged to do, and that does impact our exercise for the long run. When we talk about exercise myths, these are some flat out lies. Exercise increases the appetite, maybe right afterwards because you just lost a lot of energy. But overall, it doesn't. Exercising special spots will reduce local areas of fat. It's called spot reducing. You can't really do that. You lose fat all over. You can't choose the area that you want to lose it in. You can't say, I want to lose weight here, I want to lose it in my belly, I want to lose it in my legs. You just lose it comprehensively. But you do tend to lose it in the areas that you genetically store fat. And for women, that can be our hips and our thighs. No pain, no gain. That one I don't agree with. Let me just tell you why. This is your bubble. And the results that you are looking for are far outside of the bubble. If you want results, they are going to a degree have to come with a level of discomfort. It doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be in excruciating pain, but it's almost impossible to have results without a level of discomfort or not getting out of your comfort zone. So that one ain't really true. And this is coming from a former coach and physical fitness instructor. Lifting weights gives women a masculine bulky physique. Again, not true, because you can do muscular endurance, which is the number of times your muscles can repeat an activity. It doesn't have to be strength-based. This is one of my favorites. The more sweat produced, the more fat loss. That's not true. It just means that you're losing more water. It's not an indication of calories burned. Some people just run hot. In fact, bigger people tend to sweat more because they have more insulation. So, not true. And then exercise is not good for trimming down because weight is gained in muscle. That is true. Bulk muscle does put on weight, but we're looking at BMI or total, your body composition, your fat to muscle ratio. So it's totally possible for someone to be muscular and still slim. I always tell people it's really in the fit of your clothes. The scale doesn't always tell the truth. I look lighter than what I am, but because muscle is compact and lean, but it's still compact, or fat spreads. And so you can actually have muscle and still be very small. And then lastly, women cannot perform well athletically while menstruating. That's a flat out lie, because half the time, if you're a high-end athlete, you won't get a period while you're exercising. And actually, exercising is found to reduce cramping in premenopausal and pre-menstruating and menstruating symptoms for women. Now we want to look at exercising and aging. Once again, women are at a significantly increased risk for osteoporosis, and exercising helps to prevent that, or at least to slow the progression of osteoporosis, because it is a degenerative condition. These are some of the things that happen with age. These are some of the changes associated with aging that you can actually help to prevent or slow down. Higher body fat, that just comes from either eating too much or not exercising enough, or a combination of both. Lower lean body weight. That just means that if your muscles are not being used, they're going to atrophy away. And there's no such thing as unused muscle turning to fat. muscle and fat are separate substances, and they cannot be converted into each other. They'll just atrophy away. Your flexibility decreases, your bone mass decreases, leading to osteoporosis, you have low metabolism, you have slow reaction time. This is what happens. Part of these things are just a natural aging out process too. But exercise does help to reduce the risks of some of our diseases, and also really to kind of slow down the progression of aging. And we all want to stay young for the long as possible, but hold on to that metabolism, because it is not going to be there always. I promise you, it's going to slow down as soon as you slow down. And if you exercise, the more you exercise, the less of these negative impacts you're really going to see. And now I want to talk about how genetics plays a role. So there is a predisposition to being overweight and obese. We know that a large majority of the United States, a large percentage of the United States is overweight or obese. But some of that is genetic, and there's nothing you can do about it. Having said that, these are your influences: genetic, your metabolism, your behavioral, environmental, cultural, social, economic statuses. You are more likely to exercise if you hang around people who exercise. You are more likely to eat healthy if you are around people who eat healthy. You're more likely to eat Twinkies and French fries and nachos if that's what the people who eat around you are eating. And then, so those are some of your socio-cultural and your environmental factors. You're more likely to, and this one goes on either side of the scale, behavioral. Sometimes people who are depressed, they overeat. It causes them to eat more and they gain weight. Sometimes people who are depressed, they can't eat and they lose weight. So behaviorally, it can go on either side of the scale. A lot of the time, though, we comfort eat when we don't feel well. That's why comfort foods, we call them comfort foods because they make us feel good. We just eat a lot of them. And then we come to genetics. So genetics, I've found more so with genetics that it is oftentimes not genetics. It is oftentimes environmental. So if your family has a problem with obesity and being overweight, a lot of times it's because we pass down cultural or we pass down environmental or behavioral traits of our cooking to our children. It's not so much that I have a fat gene. In fact, there's a fat gene theory. It's not proven. If your mama cook like this, and your sisters cook like this, and daddy cook like this, and uncle and auntie cook like this, then you are more likely to cook like that. And if there is an obesity problem in your family, part of that is because you have passed down a lineage of cooking and eating unhealthy. That's not genetic. That is behavioral. That's environmental. And those are all modifiable. Genetics is when you have a predisposition. And so what I do say when it comes to a true genetic predisposition, which is not very often, and a thyroid only causes you to gain like 5-10 pounds, not a lot. An underactive thyroid is not tremendous, like 50 or 60 pounds that people want to think it is. Let's get rid of that. So thyroids really are not a huge issue when it comes to weight gain. But what people have to understand, though, is that your genetics may load the gun, but your environment pulls the trigger. You may have been given a bad roll of dice, but you still control what you put in your body. You still control the amount of exercise that you can dispense. All of those are controllable, and those are the biggest factors. So not everybody got the genetic lottery ticket, but you can still control and have a large degree of control over your weight based on what you put in your body, the foods that you eat, and the exercise that you do. So this is one of the reasons why we have most Americans, over 60%, 65%, who are overweight and 5% that are obese. We have 60% of children who are overweight. Research has found that children who are discriminated against on the playground are not discriminated against based on color or ethnicity or gender. They're discriminated against based on being overweight, because the larger kids just simply can't do the exercises, so people don't want to choose them to be on the teams. Kids do not grow out of obesity. They actually grow into it. And this is why, as women, we have to be very careful about what we put in our bodies, about what we feed our children, how we feed our men or our women or whoever it is. We have to be very careful, because this trend in America, this obesity trend, is not going away. It doesn't matter how much keto diet you're going to be on. A keto diet was for people who have seizures, and they instead of taking their main source of calories from carbs, they take it from proteins instead. But it's not a sustainable diet. These people are always paired with nutritionalists, and it's a lifestyle that is very difficult to maintain. So it's a fad diet. We have to be careful with what we put in our bodies as women. We have to be careful with our exercise regimens. We don't have as much leeway as the men do. So in conclusion, I really hope that you guys have found this informative, and I hope that you will have a wonderful time on the test and score very highly. All right, thank you.